Hello and welcome to the Civ 5 Battle Royale X Mark V, Episode 26, Mounting Modern Mayhem. The Royale races toward the late game, new fronts and tactics emerge, and city defenses reach breaking points as the race to survive gets harder for rump states. Welcome back to the Cibrix 5. I'm your narrator, Emerald Range, today, and we're at an exciting point in the mid-game as contenders get solidified and pretenders get exposed. We had an exciting episode last time, with many tense conflicts finally boiling over and causing mayhem and massive shifts. Tlingit, of course, continues to dominate, and we saw the Yanomami eliminate the Shavante last episode before jumping on Charagua. It's now episode 26. Wow, how time flies. We're about to leave the mid-game with ideologies abound and civs catching up to modern technologies like mechanical ravens. With cities falling faster than ever, will the Scythian-Estonia war go somewhere this time? Can Lanfang stop the New South Welsh offensive? Will Hansa or Kalmar finally lose their capital? Well, let's get going to find out. Our OC this episode is from Orange, who points out more hilarity regarding the Catholic Church, which is currently only followed by two civs attacking each other. Surely this extra religiously motivated strength will let Scythia do something in Estonian lands, right? We have our map from Sonic Fan, whose map was very helpful to me in checking where and when citadels were placed, since we have so much citadel spam in Border Gore this episode. It's a great work, and wow, is it nice to see so much Tlingit color on the map. A quick word from our sponsors, the wonderful Ko-Fi donators. We do truly appreciate your support. I once again remind everyone to switch their support away from the dead Pomo, who were, admittedly, great at feeding Tlingit a lot of nice land. I also ask that the civs fighting it out in the Battle Royale please kill Pegu so I can switch my flare to the Tlingit. Hey, we don't get to see these slides early, so I could wait until the PRs come out and add this here. But I'm gonna call it. Tlingit will be number 1, and that's the slide I will have here. And now we have a quick time travel segment to feature Emerald, who will quickly comment on some of the biggest movements in the PR chart. Thank you, Past Emerald. Well, actually, we aren't going to look at the Tlingit side. It's Bjarmia that's being highlighted. Yeah, you're seeing that right. They jumped 10 parts. The PRs are smoking some nonsense, but apparently Bjarmia is really nothing ever happening to the top. This has been quite a shocking rise in their stock prices. Now, will they justify their high ranking? Let's find out. And we kick it off as Estonia finally takes the city quickly, snapping up Bergen. Wait, it's a double capture! Although Scythia is breathing down their neck in Tartu, the plucky Estonians have taken Bremen as well. Oh, if only they took cities faster before. Instead, the Scythian horde is going to descend and likely flip Bremen back anyways. On the other side of Hansa, the war in Denmark continues to go nowhere, with the tide now slightly favoring the Kalmar. We return to the tragedy that is Lanfang, a bully in the region being eaten alive by both their own corruption and an even bigger bully. Two cities, one on Sumatra and one just to its west, flip to New South Wales in the ongoing Flipfest. As expected, the giant fleet of Nepo babies in the North Borneo Sea were totally useless anyways, even when they were sent south to defend the capital. Wolfangbo attempts to save his capital and his chances from impending doom with a couple of artillery, but at this point, he'd need to have a submarine hiding somewhere uncharacteristically early to fend the waters off the massive New South Wales Navy. MacArthur doesn't only have a navy, he also now has 11 planes in the area to keep the pressure. And more than that, he's brought a sizable army too to land and take the fight onto land. Not that he'd need it, since the Lanfang do not have a single inland city anywhere south of Cambodia. Joao sits in contemplation, reading reports of the Aures eating up Rome, all while nervously looking at the massive French army with their unique national guards looking at the border with their extra XP from guillotine bloodlust. He reads a page about Evora when an assistant comes up to him, declaring that Portugal is now ready to choose an ideology. My, is it that time? Sure, not already. There are still galleasses and even some triremes in the sea, and yet now we are in the modern age? Joao sweats a bit, knowing that he's not been as productive as he could have been to make Maria proud. Is it time to strike the Ares? An ideology. Well, Evora? Evola? It must be autocracy. Autocracy is the only way. Otherwise, countless horrors of unhappy citizens demanding to be oppressed would rise up against him if he chose something less evil. Speaking of Ares destroying Rome, the Ares army has well and truly landed on the Italian peninsula, the Pope's remaining cities in 3 different states of fucked. Ravenna looks okay for at least 5 more turns, while Benevento is slowly being choked to death. Pontecorvo, already halfway gone, is being defended by a lone galleass as the Ares bring 2 musicians to taunt Pope Julius about just how easy it is to conquer Italy. It's a piece of cheese, Dihya confidently declares. Tang takes pity on the situation, however, and in their magnanimous grace, pieces out with the Pope. A piece that will, for sure, be as relevant as Pegu also piecing out the Pope. And out of left field, Yanomami takes another capital! They are now at 3 capitals, making them tied for first place in the only statistic that matters for victory alongside Cebu. That's right, Yanomami is as good as Cebu. This is unbelievable. And it comes at the expense of some of the most evil, coldly calculated decisions by Davia Copenama, who declared on the poor, defenseless, and plucky underdog Charagua right when they were about to do the impossible and slay the giant, evil Susquehannock in a different war. Now, things have gone from hopeful dark horse to catastrophic. Anacaona has not only lost her capital of Yaguana, she has also lost her offensive against Tesing, where Susquehannock mechanical ravens are now bombing Gonaibo, ready for their amphibious assault to take over the Bahamas. Well, actually, fear not. Yanomami loses Yaguana almost immediately as Charagua takes it back. There is still hope for them, even if it's getting infinitesimal. I'm not sure why the cameras are focused on the Teotihuacan when there's exciting action happening barely out of frame. Corral is, theoretically, attacking Teotihuacan, but there is no evidence of that on this screen. We can at least admire the amazing and dominant results of the Tlingit Southern Campaign. With 12 mechanical ravens already positioned in place to bomb the heck out of Teo to take their capital when the peace treaty expires, Spear Thrower Owl better get cracking on building a defense if he wants to stay alive a bit longer. Another relevant thing to note here is that Uma was actually kept by the Tlingit, giving them a headway to clean up the mess that is the South Pacific Islands too. And if Davi is looking for a way for Yanomami to beat the Civ when they're down, he also has a lot of ships ready to pounce on Teo right on that border. We continue with capital conquests as New South Wales finally takes their first capital. Our preseason number 1 contender is finally showing their weight even without being able to take out Banuba as expected. They've been able to go around them with a massive navy and clamp down on a corrupt and flailing Lanfang and have firmly taken Dongwanlu. There is a Lanfang carrack hanging about that is quickly becoming Lo Fangbo's only hope to reflip the city, but it's looking increasingly unlikely he can turn the tide as half of Sumatra has also fallen to the New South Welsh. He's trying though, with frigates and melee land units poised to land and take back Bakuan or Lara at least one more time. The light at the end of the tunnel is that the New South Welsh force has substantially thinned and likely cannot mount an offensive to take another city. We see just how much one turn has done to Tartu, and let's not forget the sneaky attempt to also attack Viljandi up north. Tartu is in the yellow with no relief in sight for Estonia. Atias is deploying his new strategy of Pogal to his Scythian troops, ordering them to be on the go and just ride past their target. Kalmar observers remain very confused by this tactic and the backwards Swedish, but can't really blame them if this lets the Scythians keep reinforcements far away from reinforcing Tartu. Even though Scythia apparently used up their entire horde of Enlightenment-era crusaders to attack Estonia like this, they will likely at least take one city. Just don't think about how they lost 2 last turn. Despite the relatively medieval nature of the units in play, the quick change of pace and rapid dwindling of city defenses is another reminder that we are moving into the late game, where planes and artillery will soon make short work of castles and city defenses. Perhaps there's even hope that Yunnan and Pegu will finally die. Yep, that's right, we just talked about Yunnan and Pegu in a slide about Estonia. I bet all those people on Kalshi are fuming right now. The 3 papal cities continue to have their castle walls progressively turned into more Swiss cheese. Although, Aures seems to be adopting a modernized version of the Kharral line formation. What is that? A skirmisher's social distancing? Dihyad, do you know that skirmishers only have 1 tile of range now? You can't do anything to Pontecorvo standing there, alert and defending against non-existent troops 2 tiles away. Well, at least that barely alive cavalry horse might take the city by itself. Dihyad does seem capable enough not to fuck that up. Over in North Italy, Benevento is also still taking damage, despite having fewer tiles and troops surrounding it. Although, this is expected when you actually put your skirmisher next to the city. We finally get an action shot of Yaguana, where the Yanomami menace is still hanging out right next door. Ironically for the Caribbean Civ, a privateer glares at the musketmen guarding Charagua's capital. The poor musketman, constrained by the silly logic of Civilization V, cannot shoot the privateer who waits patiently for the Yanomami frigates to bring the city back down before, presumably, flipping it back next turn. Further north, the Susquehannock front has finally collapsed as well, with Gonaibo falling to a Susquehannock rifleman that, based on the logic of Civilization V, can take cities unlike skirmishers who also use rifles. Let's get out of the meta nonsense and look at Yakimel, one of the remaining big Charagua cities controlling the rest of the Bahamas and the Antillas Mayores. It's mostly being attacked by the Susquehannock mechanical ravens who bomb the island city, while they send small boats with riflemen to try to take it when it's low. But they must be wary of another Yanomami privateer who is watching eagerly, ready to snipe it. What is it with just panning away whenever something happens to Yaguana? We'll have a proper look, but you can see in the slide that the Yanomami are indeed back at 3 capitals. Instead of looking at their newest capital, we look at their other captured capital, the 6th pop city of Etenyiri Pa. The former Shavante capital sits very close to the Potiguara, who, despite their incompetency, are shrimply able to take cities now, apparently. The Yanomami lands are mostly low-pop cities like that, though, and the main core really being up in Venezuela. Even their capital is only 15 pop. That's probably what happens when you cut down the entire Amazon for no reason, even when your unique ability is about keeping jungle tiles into the modern era. Shaking my head. We have a look again at, I guess it's a somewhat interesting, weird, skinny bit of land connecting Bukama and Kitabi? I'm not sure what there is to say here. I think one of the dead civs is messing with it. Can someone check the submarine's cameras? Thanks. Well, back to the action. Clearly, the action is a bit to the north, as the preordained mid-game Ethiopia collapse is in full swing and nearly wrapping up its production. Gondar has fallen to the Zazao, leaving them very close to Addis Ababa. Fear not, Rohan will not save them because Rohan doesn't exist in this screenshot, and also Addis Ababa is not actually the capital of this Ethiopia, so Ethiopia can muster up a bit of a counterattack still. Luofangbo's melee units and frigates are able to take Bakuan and Lara back. As we speculated early, Lanfang salvages some of their losses in Sumatra and realizes that there are very few New South Welsh naval ships left to try and contest it again. At the same time, the artillery fire on Dongwanlu has brought it to the black, being completely defenseless. Now all Luo needs to do is to get a unit into the city and the capital is back in his hands. Wow, the New South Welsh attacks may have overextended just slightly. With the board as it looks, Lanfang could realistically flip back everything on Borneo and Sumatra, but probably won't keep their capital at the end of this war. Back in Italy, Pontecorvo falls. It looks like Dihya was indeed smart enough to move her skirmishers a bit closer. Pope Julius is signed to his fate, and focuses his efforts on shoring up Ravenna and doing his best to send reinforcements to Benevento. Though I'm not sure if a trebuchet is the best unit you could have built there for defense. Maybe it was a leftover from when there was still a possibility to retake Rome. The Ravenna papacy also makes contingency plans with their 2 settlers to perhaps settle in some other welcoming Pesaget land that will let them settle, even though the Pope isn't leading the religion really. While we're here, there is a surprisingly good navy in the Adriatic from Wallachia that could, if it wanted, contest and maybe take these former papal cities away from Aures. You know, just ideas for Vlad if he wants to find more enemies to impale. We get a proper shot of the South Pacific garbage patch, otherwise known as Rapa Nui's theoretical lands. Ha! Another Kalshi bet lost. Here we see the new Tlingit colony of Uma, with a good navy to defend it from stray aggression, as is common in these waters. Caral, of course, has the coolest parts of the South Pacific, since their chunk of the theoretical Rapa Nui lands is actually not theoretical. The Caral are investing in their own modernization of the Caral line formation. This time, it's called the Long Missile Cruiser, a unit that takes up 3 tiles for no reason graphically. I'm not sure if this will help them take Sipar, but they are at least trying to do war things here. Then we have the remaining Teotihuacan colonies, defended by some plucky galleasses, bordering 4 different civs different times. The border gore is mostly from Banuba's colony of Biridu, cutting the Chono colonies in half. Of the 2, though, Chono definitely has a technological advantage, while Banuba has the not being Chono edge. And yes, let's address the real elephant in the room before actually getting to see the capital capture. Taizong builds a giant metal structure in Luoyang. People complain excessively about it, saying that it's extremely ugly. And ugly it is. The giant, open-frame steel tower tapers to a sharp point, spearing a giant bulbous circle at the top and looks like it has 6 different arches at the bottom of it in a circular pattern. When pressed, Taizong says that it's so he can get up very high and watch over the surrounding countryside. It's more efficient than building a large standing army, he says. I can watch the Roran and Karakitai impending invasion from here, he says. I'm now rebranding it to be called the Metal Drum Tower instead of the Luoyang Broadcast Tower, he says. It's totally beautiful, he says. Be happy, he says. Alright, finally checking back on Iguana, where, yep, it looks pretty bad for Charagua, and oh my god, Susquehannock has fumbled the Bahamas as the Yanomami ships snipe both Yakimel and take Onaibo back. That's crazy. So, Anakoana managed to flip Ganaibo back, but she lost it immediately to Yanomami. Is she? Either Lawson Nope might have forgotten a gender marker, or Anacauna is a trans king. The remaining pieces of the Charagua pie, though, look quite dire. While Anacauna does have enough units left to put up a fight, there are enough Yanomami units and backups close enough to take Guava and eliminate the Charagua. Bahoma, with its 2 pop, is already at half health, and basically a foregone conclusion. Yeesh, this war has moved really fast in favor of the Yanomami indeed. The other small rump state in the Caribbean is citadeled by Anishinaabe in a special military operation. The citadel takes a big chunk out of Karankawa's capital city. Pontiac takes what is in our timeline the city of Dallas, while Karankawa cower in fear and just let them have it. Susquehannock's embarrassing near loss after they decided to attack and bully Charagua gets a tiny bit worse, or better depending on your perspective. They have set themselves well to take the Karankawa capital and join the illustrious Two Capital Club. Does this cause embarrassment to old Shiheis for not fighting against the giant Anishinaabe threat? Or does it cause less embarrassment because everyone is now bullying small states? The tide of the League-Union War has really turned. The Kalmar are actually mounting a decent offensive against both Hamburg and Lübeck. They have a massive armada of Gunhulk, their unique galleass that moves faster on coast tiles. And unluckily for Hansa, pretty much every tile of water that Kalmar owns is indeed a coast tile. But if you were worried that Kalmar doesn't have melee units, fear not, because there are 2 knights ready to take Lübeck with another knight in the background. Surely, 3 melee units is enough insurance to take the cities, right? Over to the right, we also see that the Scythian offensive on Bremen is petering out a bit faster than expected. Perhaps those skirmishers are actually good at attacking these units. More likely, it's probably just not enough mounted units to take a city by themselves. One funny thing to see, too, is that the trade caravan is being hurt by those citadels. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Caral flips in Takataka again, but the Teotihuacan have rebuilt their navy. Wait a minute. That's no navy. That's just a bunch of embarked units set up for target practice against the Caral Line missile cruiser in Cerro Blanco. Regardless, though, the tail units around in Takataka makes it hard for Caral to really keep the city. I don't see this front going much further for Caral. They'd be smarter to focus down on the Pacific colonies and peace out to build up an army against the new Yanomami threat. Oh wow, would you look at that? Is this mic hooked up to Kapak's ear? Caral has sent more units to take Sapar in the Pacific, surrounding it with a decent grouping of both melee and ranged units. Sapar has already fallen to the yellow, and the Teotihuacan defensives are not looking too hot. They don't really have enough land tiles to be using field guns to defend with. The apocalypse grows nearer for Teotihuacan indeed. As we proceed into the 1950s, we also have a look-see at the Bunuba Jilamana, a rifleman replacement that starts with higher sight and healing outside friendly territory. It can move away after attacking or defeating an enemy, being slippery, but they are weaker in base strength. I don't know if I would have personally designed them to be weaker in base strength, but if Jandamara wants to harass New South Wales instead of actually taking cities, I guess this is a good unit for that. Right now, though, this particular Jilamana is sitting on a boat, watching in awe at the double-length Caral Line missile cruisers in the Pacific, wondering if their unit model can ever grow to be this big as well. Going to West Africa, we see some exciting action from Portugal as they citadel Bisandugu, squeezing right next to the Zazao city limits. This military operation has been met with condemnation from Zazao, who cry that they are busy trying to cause the mid-game Ethiopia collapse before the information era. Joao simply says, "You snooze, you lose," pointing out that Bisandugu doesn't even have a single unit garrison there. We should also mention here that we have really started to enter the late game, because zooming out starts causing graphical glitches and the stability of the game starts to become a big issue, hence why we are getting to see a closer shot of these large city suburban sprawls as we really enter the 1950s. I imagine the suburbs to the northwest of Bisandugu are mightily pissed off that they now have to cross the border to get downtown. They might even complain to their HOA. Mekele falls to the red as Zazao's cuirassiers make faster work of the city. Speaking of Zazao's gallant efforts to finally cause Ethiopia's mid-game collapse in the late game, their army is much more dominant here than Ethiopia's. Unlike Scythia, they've paired their cuirassiers with crossbowmen to effectively bombard the weak cities of the Ethiopian desert. We saw Gondar fall barely on screen earlier, and Ethiopia has a modest effort that might flip it back given how weak the city's defenses are right now. Zara Yaqub, seeing the impending end of the Ethiopian civilization, spends some time with a bunch of his musicians. He tells his generals to enjoy the party in Debre Berhan instead of fighting on the front line because, quote, Ethiopia is preordained to collapse after the mid-game. Citizens in Luoyang are still upset about the steel drum tower that is very clearly just a large, ugly broadcast tower. To justify that tower totally being for radio broadcasts and not to look at the giant Roran army waiting at the border, Taizong funds a bunch of musical theaters on Jiangguomine Street. Before, everyone was kind of forced to go to the Grand Theater to watch plays about how the Roran and Karakitai hordes are totally not a threat. But now, they can go see these fancy new musicals and operas about various great successes of Tang diplomats of years past. The biggest shows of the 1950s era of Tang musical theater explore themes of worry and paranoia, championing protagonists who shrewdly avoid being conquered by an overwhelmingly stronger villain by building decoy weapons to trick them into a favorable peace deal. There are absolutely no parallels to read into about the Tang Navy scaring the Roran from attacking their best cities. Say, is that Rome? No, Sahir, that is Lebap, a relatively unimportant Circassian city. Ah, I could have sworn a big city on the Bosphorus would have been a great city, as important as Rome. Well then, we got to find a different Rome that we can use now that Rome is under the yoke of the evil Aures. Sir, we're not in the Bosphorus. What? What is this narrow passage then? Sir, it's a canal. The Findic Canal that lets us go to Lebap from the Sea of Marmara. People were really upset about Lebap not being one tile west, so Circassia built it with the help of their military. The Rum Corps push into North Borneo, having secured Dongwanlu from any remaining attempts from Lanfang trying to take the city back. While the troop movements have really dried up over in Sumatra, both the Rum Army and the Rum Navy are dominant in the Borneo theater. The Rum Corps riflemen UU and the frigates are pushing on to taking one of the rare, bespoke, originally Ryukyuan city of Tulare. With their planes raining down, it seems nearly impossible for Lanfang to stop them. However, Guo Fangbo has realized that there are actually quite a lot of ships he still has in the Bay of Bengal. Frustrated, he tries to send them south to actually cut off the New South Welsh attack from the rear. However, his advisors and generals say that it's not possible because they are staffed by a bunch of Nepo babies who would mutiny. Aures takes Benevento with a musketman, as their land units make their way around the French citadeling mess. The Pope watches helplessly in horror as he waits to hear from his carrack to run away to eastern Rome. He has a respectable attempt at a defensive force and might flip it back, but he's also aware of the Aures cavalry staring right back at him from beyond the Po River, ready to attack Ravenna. His naval force is also looking pretty bad, and at this point, the only thing that might save him is if France or Wallachia attacks Aures and decides to gift him cities back. The Anishinaabe, meanwhile, seem to be preparing to invade Santa Claus, building an absolutely massive Arctic navy to take, what? The three Onondaga snow cities in Nunavut? That'd be dumb because, as we know, it's impossible for Onondaga to lose a city. In fact, if Anishinaabe attacks Onondaga, it will surely lose. We've all seen what a giant horde of slightly outdated cuirassiers can do to Estonia. Imagine what a moderately sized horde of extremely outdated knights could do against the Anishinaabe. Clearly, those mechanical ravens have a secret weakness to good old medieval armor. We also have to briefly mention that the Susquehannock also seem ready to attack Santa Claus, moving their mechanical ravens to the very top of Nunavut and their outpost of Kaikwariyagahaga. Maybe they are all actually just trying to attack that horrendous whale city that has no business still being there. The Yanomami have not been able to take Bohoma yet, but they have actually been getting a bit smarter and focusing on the real prize of Guava. Their troops have absolutely swarmed Puerto Rico, and the Charagua's current capital of Guaiva is almost halfway fallen. Meanwhile, it would be a miracle if Anacaona manages to survive for more than 3 turns. Prime your Fs, everyone. Sipar falls to the Caral, who take their first securely held city in a long time. The privateer, giddy with excitement, attempts to take Ocaseta next, before realizing that they might need a bit more reinforcements. Luckily, Capac seems to be a bit smarter and has sent a small naval contingent from Cerro Blanco down south, instead of repeatedly attacking that one Teotihuacan mainland city. At the same time, though, Spear Thrower Owl is still a smart lad. Just because he couldn't do anything about the glorious might of the Tlingit army, doesn't mean he isn't finding a scrappy way to cause trouble to Caral. His frigate is battering Mataveri down, and if he had a single melee unit anywhere near, he could flip both cities back and really be annoying to Caral. But for now, it'll mostly just be annoying. Mekele falls to the Zazao, and their cuirassiers immediately rampage east to threaten Harar. They've left their crossbowmen behind, but surely they can still keep the momentum going. There seems to be another wave of units coming from the west near Fatika, this time with muskets. The southern horde, though, is a bit confused. They could attack Addis Ababa, but half of the units insist the capital is actually Debre Barhan and want to go there. But they only find a musician at a rock-hewn church, confusing them as well. Zara Yaqub's party continues in Debre Barhan, though, and despite seemingly being resigned to his fate of being eliminated soon, his generals are not so sure. They do have 4 cities, and the Zazao offensive will slowly be killed off if they keep pushing and overextending themselves. They build some units to at least defend the capital, since they can easily make it out of this war with 3 cities. 4 if they're smart about things. The Kalmar Navy has properly swept in, landing a couple lancers in Pomerania, beginning to damage a 3rd city, the city of Schwerin. More importantly, they've brought Lübeck and Hamburg both down to half. The Hansa defense is looking quite thin near Lübeck. That great general isn't going to be able to do shit to defend unless he pops a citadel immediately. It's looking dire for Hansa with an army of mostly melee units. This is, unfortunately, one of the few times where having too many melee units has not been helpful. Over Eastern Europe, we see that the Bremen offensive has truly puttered out, with practically no more threats from Scythia left. They do still have units around Tartu, but we can't quite see the state of that city's health right now. Oh, joy of joys, Tartu is indeed in the red. We might see at least one city flip from the efforts of the entire Scythian army. With only a cannon and a frigate able to defend the siege of Tartu, Lenat Mary can't do anything to save Tartu. His best bet is to build up some more units and try to flip it back after. Instead, he has decided to send some of his precious few frontline units to attempt to take Kuloba with just 2.5 units. News of this infuriates Mysore so much, Tipu Sultan declares war in solidarity with Scythia. Atias, meanwhile, is inspired by how he sent his entire army to their deaths attempting to overrun 4 Estonian cities at once, but still came out on top looking to take Tartu any time now. He declares that all those naysayers in his court are all stupid, and that from now on, he would be an autocratic ruler, making all decisions on where to send the army to die the next time they build one. Pakistan decides that Ma'in really needs to die and declares war on them. This comes after a semi-relevant peace where Ethiopia has graciously made peace with Ma'in as well, deciding that the rump state deserves to finish in 50th place or something way too high. Pakistan has no such qualms, however, and wants to bring balance to the power rankings. Jinnah realizes he has a massive army and a navy, and should do something with it. We definitely have way too many rump states, Pegu, that should have died a long time ago. It's a good thing that Pakistan is so concerned with righting wrongs like Ma'in. Perhaps that means they will see that they can actually do something about a certain other purpley-red rump state that currently holds an originally Mayan city. Or they could roll through another civ trying to sneak into the top 40 by being very still, Bactria. Old She-Haze is also disgusted by Estonia's slightly less than optimal defensive strategy. They decide to attack Estonia, moving their mechanical ravens from Nunavut into their closest cities on Newfoundland and Greenland. This is, of course, yet another irrelevant war, but we get to see the North Atlantic where Onondaga should, with a miracle and a half, theoretically be able to build a large army and take those isolated Susquehannock cities in the Arctic, while not losing their own cities in eastern Canada. Okay, maybe 2 miracles and a half. Aures makes peace with the Pope in a much more relevant change of states of war. Aures have become quite successful in their invasion, shocking many when they successfully crossed the Mediterranean to cut off the tip of the papal tiara by taking Rome first. It shouldn't have been much of a surprise, given that they had citadeled Sardinia right onto Rome's doorsteps. And from there, they managed to make an impressive landing and dismantling of the Pope's defenses, taking both Benevento and Pontecorvo by navigating the narrow and claustrophobic French and Wallachian borders skillfully. Really, the Pope had been doomed ever since they were unable to contest that settlement of Arras. Aures, in both the real game and in test games, has been generally not the best at expanding across the Mediterranean, so people might have written them off when they declared war on the Pope this latest time. The Yanomami invasion of the Caribbean nears close as well, taking Bahoma and bringing Guava down to the red. The Charagua now only have 4 military units left to defend with, and is looking increasingly closer to their elimination. The Yanomami are no slackers, and they are not taking up the victory formation yet. David knows that he needs to actually take the city, and stop flipbacks for a clean elimination without excessive warmonger penalties. Though I would imagine his bullying and lack of mercy towards the Charagua might draw in denunciation still. Prime your F keys, everyone. Oh, unprime your F keys, everyone. There are 4 more Charagua units. Okay, yeah, no, the important thing to see here is that Charagua did settle an insurance policy that I, and likely everyone else, has forgotten about. The city of Miraguaino, a strange parody of the actual city of Guava, will likely be the last bastion of the Charagua Taino culture, on the warm and sunny Caribbean shores of Queen Maud Land in the Antarctic. Regardless of how many fake palm trees and plants the local leaders try to put up, anticipating Anaconda's exile to their humble icy outpost, it will never feel the same. They will always be one malicious war from Guaycuru away from elimination down here. Which means they will finish in the top 10, of course, since we've all seen that Guaycuru is physically incapable of attacking and taking easy one-city targets. The people of Bactria are living a lovely, quiet existence, avoiding worry as the Circassians continually send embarked land units over the Caspian to their doom. The people in eastern Bactria have even less worries, with mountains stopping Pakistan and Karakitai from doing anything, and the Kipchaks, well, being the Kipchaks. Their biggest concern is the Pakistani land-grabbing exclave nonsense, which has been slightly annoying to the farmers of Eskate. In Bactria, they are developing a unique guitar culture, influencing 50s Bactrian music with Arthur Smith, already an accomplished fiddler who developed the genre baby bluegrass, has taken to the fancy new medium of television to play Bactrian country music. Bjarmia, emboldened by the enormous boost in the power rankings, decides to attack Hansa. Something must have gotten missed in the memo. And yes, by this point, we've heard the power rankings and the absolutely shocking rise of Bjarmia by 10 places after losing a city to Vyatka. The Power Rankers cabal justifies this by saying they have 3 easy and weak neighbors they could theoretically attack with their superior technology. And instead of building up an army to do that, or even just taking a risk and attacking the Kalmar in Estonia whilst they have their own major wars to deal with, they attack a civ they have no hope of attacking. nothing ever happens. New South Wales retakes Bakuan and Lara. They diverted some of their new reinforcements to take back southern Sumatra, successfully calling Lanfang's bluff in the west. Luo Fangbo is furious, since his giant Indian Ocean Navy is actually sitting out the war out of pure cowardice. What a load of useless ships. At this point, he considers gifting the ships to Pegu so that Pegu can still win somehow to outdo the fumbling. He can, at last, feel a bit happy that he's managed to stop the assault on Tomari a bit longer. But with 5 New South Wales melee units in range to take the city, he can't stop the inevitable without suddenly inventing and getting a large amount of anti-aircraft guns. Shock and dismay around Europe! The Hansa have done it again! They've diplomatically avoided a sure disaster with some crazy peace deal that Kalmar should never have accepted. They give up Schwerin in exchange for keeping Lübeck and Hamburg, both cities that the Kalmar were on their way to take quite soon. Well, at least the Kalmar have another city from which they can launch an effective attack on the Hansa, only to peace out for some reason at the end. This is, unfortunately, one of the more competent moments from Kalmar, and surely frustrating to not just Kalmar fans, but also to all those shipmen in the Baltic who are about to be a part of a crew that took a capital. The Atelmen enter the modern era and celebrate by declaring war on Charagua. Harchin wants to join the cool guys club by beating up weak rump states, but doesn't feel confident he could do anything to green Ukraine. It's not like he has that many land units, and all those naval units could always be beset with Lanfang syndrome and fail to do anything to Vladivostok. He is, of course, totally confident his buddy the Tlingit won't attack them, despite Sheikh positioning 16 mechanical ravens in the Aleutian Isles. Harchin figures this is just part of an elaborate Mock the Raven ceremony. Phoenicia and Hyksos join in on the Hating Estonia for Not Mounting a Perfect Defense Club and declare a joint war. The two are too chummy with each other, given that if either were able to just eat the other one, they could be a relevant regional power. But as they stand, they are both useless near rumps. Of course, if this were CHG and not CBR, they could do a craven merger and be powerful, but alas, that's not how this game works. The best we can hope for from these wars is that Hyksos builds up more land units, and then later decides to attack Harar to snipe it from Zazao. That, or this inspires Bjarmia to attack Estonia instead of Hansa. We are just having a nice look at Miraguano when suddenly Anakauna appears in the icy land. She is very upset, distraught, and extremely cold. She is very underdressed and very unhappy about the whole situation. She demands to go back, believing someone in Miraguano teleported her there with some of the fancy new technology, before she realizes that she was exiled to Antarctica immediately when she lost Guava to the Yanomami. Yes, the Yanomami have completed their full capture of the Caribbean and eliminated any Charagua units left in the vicinity, forcing Anakauna to be teleported through submarine magic to her last city in the Antarctic. Although distraught, she composes herself enough to peace out with the Yanomami, saving the last remaining Charagua unit, a nearly dead galleon trying to run away from the Caribbean by heading north. The galleon heads to Moycullen, hoping the whale will let them dock. The whale tell them no, since they are not actually pirates. For Yanomami, this has solidified their top 10 status. They have 3 capitals, tied for first in the game, and have a significant amount of Caribbean settlements that can grow to large populations to support their next move. Right now, their large holdings are only threatened by Teotihuacan, giving the lack of Susquehannock naval units, giving them time to rebuild. And David gets right to it, settling the city of Maikoto on Curacao to get started on fishing the Caribbean for resources. Something has happened! Bjarmia declares war on the Kalmar! It's not an Estonian DOW, but I'll take it. They don't seem to have a good plan for invading the Kalmar, and the Kalmar did just finish up their war with the Hansa, but I'm sure those 3 Curaçaos and Wegestoff can storm across the Norwegian mountains and just take Turku. Yeah, this is likely not a war that will go very far, but we can dream, given how empty the Kalmar lands are, even compared to the mediocre Bjarmia army. Relatedly, more civs continue to declare irrelevant wars on Charagua, presumably either wanting to take the lush and beautiful Antarctic city or mock the Guaycuru's inability to declare easy and quick wars. The latest declaration worries Anakauna slightly before she realizes that it's Japan rather than a different red-on-white civ that has a strong presence in the Southern Ocean. While we let other civs attempt to attack Charagua from far away, we have a quick look at New South Wales' Southern Navy, based in New Zealand, where the New South Wales Menace has set up a pretty strong secondary corps. I think this is another Lanfang Syndrome Navy. All these ships are probably stuck on the wrong side of the New Zealand Islands, with none of them going where they need to be. Aures gonna fight them off. A 7-Pope army couldn't hold Dihya back. The innovative strong base lines of the White Stripes make a tour into the nearly conquered Papal lands, celebrating the triumph of Aures. A parody of this popular song makes its way around the globe, about how a 12-nation army couldn't eliminate Charagua if they tried. The more popular this parody gets, the more civs decide to attack Charagua, increasing both the number of nations attacking Charagua in the song and causing the song to get even more viral. Guaycuru is fed up with the song mocking them and attacks Anakauna. She might be able to fend off a 12-nation army, but certainly not a 13-nation army. The Guaycuru Southern Navy immediately rushes in from South Georgia and the Chivito Islands to stop the song from going even more viral and kill both the parody and Charagua. What a spoil sport. Well, it seems a pretty foregone conclusion that this navy of 14 frigates and various other units will take this lightly defended city that doesn't even have a ranged unit to defend it. But Guaycuru has fumbled worse before, so let's stay tuned. Our game runner keeps teasing a Tlingit-Itelmen war by showing us the amount of mechanical ravens in the Aleutian Islands and Alaska. There's a grand total of 43 mechanical ravens positioned to make quick work of any of the Itelmen cities. However, for now, the two sides haven't seemed to realize that one hates ravens and the other loves ravens yet. Itelmen families take picnics in the Bering Strait beaches, watching the Tlingit aerial exercises, believing they are driving these raven effigies into the ocean. Tlingit could, of course, attack the Itelmen. It would probably be their most strategically beneficial next war, as it would let them use their northwestern military while being able to rebuild and shore up their new Mesoamerican holdings, before attacking some rump state like Teotihuacan and drawing anger from other civs. The Zazao attack on Ethiopia has been successfully confused by Ethiopia's Debre Berhan parties. The Northern Army has been heavily whittled down near Harar, with little hope of reinforcements. The reinforcements have headed to Addis Ababa, but the main attacking Southern Army has been stuck getting bombarded and taking attrition in the Ethiopian Banishangul Gamuz foothills, constantly being confused on whether Addis Ababa or Debre Berhan should be their next target. Bjarmia recruits Shinoda Gisaburo in an attempt to fight honorably for once. So far, in their war against Kalmar, they've been able to destroy a citadel near Wegestoff and likely can destroy the other one. However, the situation remains about the same from before, a mediocre army versus a non-existent army. Shinoda offers very little help, saying that a true warrior ought to leave his corpse exposed upon the battlefield. Very fitting for Bjarmia, as they are essentially a corpse exposed on an open field that no one dares to actually check if they're dead. There are just no words here. Ateas must be drunk on power after declaring Scythia to be autocratic. The army that was surrounding Tartu has decided to take a vacation towards Bremen. Clearly, that's the goal. Ateas, when asked for comment, says that they really need a coastal city to build a navy. If those 3 units next to the city cannot take Tartu, it will be seen as another Scythian blunder. It's now an even match between defenders and attackers near Tartu, but Tartu is indeed already in the red. North of Galonius, Albrecht von Wallenstein tells his soldiers not to worry, His mercenary army will make sure Tartu gets taken. Some dissidents within the Scythian state tell us that Albrecht here is to blame for the vacation. He was promised a lot of land by Ateas after this war, and he really wants a beachside estate. He was also promised a lot of land by Ateas after the war, and he really wants a beachside estate and to become an admiral, since he's not satisfied just being a generalissimo. Taizong's impressively high science leads him to the atomic era, being the first to do so. They've prepared in advance for the North American mechanical ravens they've heard a lot about. Taizong's not too sure if they're different from planes, but he heard how they took over an entire mid-sized empire, so he's taking no chances. He has a lot of anti-aircraft guns stationed everywhere. He's lucky that this is Civ 5, since those AA guns will still be quite decent against a potential Roran invasion. The window for Roran to use their cavalry to rain destruction and devastation on China is slipping away by the second. It's already 1955. At some point, North Asia is going to go from OP early game boost to post-Soviet sadness land. Chono have also built planes. They call them mechanical seals, not really knowing what the heck they're doing. The Chono Navy is quite decent, and these 20 planes stationed on their northern border would cause some worry from Caral, whose capital is only 1 tile away from Cavallete and already in artillery range. Yanomami is also slightly worried, as their conquest of Chavante has been slow to recover from, with many empty tiles and quite a lot of musicians wandering around, instead of any semblance of a defensive land force. Either one would be a great target for Caral, but they will probably end up doing something stupid like attack Potiguara, the only civ that can pose a threat to Chono in the near future. The quote-unquote 6th Longgang Conference of 1956 is underway as Lanfang gaslights the entire world into thinking that the conference has always been in the inland city of Longgang. Delegates who come from around the world are surprised to have to embark on land, not remembering doing so the first time. But, who are they to doubt the Lanfang, who clearly will forever host with more delegates than anyone else unless a certain civ had conquered the Forbidden Palace? Wait a minute, wasn't that where we met before? No, we never met there. It was always Longgang. Huh. Yeah, I guess it wasn't actually in the same city as the hosting city. But still, please don't vote for New South Wales to be host. They would embargo us and our Nepo babies would revolt if that happened. Caral continues to research the Caral Line formation in Hanga Pico. The naval scientists there discover some interesting facts about the history of the area. Not only was it settled by the ancient Rapa Nui civilization, there also seems to be metaphysical remnants of some other giant naval power. The ley lines near Hanga Pico suggest to Kapak that if a city 1 tile inland would be extremely powerful, though he'd need to back it up with more than one city in the area. Inspired, he has a settler who can settle on at least 3 different spots within the Caral territory to bolster this far-flung colony. The naval units definitely have a preference. They get into a Caral Line missile cruiser and Caral galleon line to point directly at Surist Island to tell the settler where to go. The settler, however, is distracted by the Tlingit pirate visiting nearby. Neither Estonia nor Scythia has had their turn yet in 1956 to make a move. We do see that Estonia has recruited the Great Admiral Roger of Lauria to make sure they can stop any attempts to take Bremen, since that is clearly the main target city and the main city being threatened. Roger claims that he can also fight on land if needed, since he is also a knight. Lennart Mary nods along, not wanting to tell him that we are well past the time for knights in shining armor. He merely promises that if they do make it very far, he can try to take Sicily from the Ares like he wants. Tomari falls to a rum core, and Lanfang is fully pushed off the island of Borneo. Pamangkat is immediately targeted, falling rapidly into the red, even without the help of much aerial bombardments. All those frigates seem more than enough to take the city, especially with so many melee units ready to take it. Over west, New South Wales has really brought real naval reinforcements to secure Bakuan and Lara. It seems John MacArthur has only just realized that the Lanfang Navy is allergic to moving south of Lumar. They're all standing in a line near the Andaman Islands, shuffling back and forth, not wanting to be the first ship to head south and presumably get sunk by the now decent New South Welsh defense. This annoys the artillery corps near Lara, who have been diligently keeping the city's defenses down, ready for any one of the naval melee units to take it back. And there we have it, Charagua has been eliminated. A feisty performance from our Caribbean rep for this season lands them in 54th place. 5 places lower than the power rankers expected last episode, and 12 places lower than the power rankers expected on episode 0. Anacauna just didn't settle very much, unable to really establish a strong core and contest any of the mainlands around them. They gave up a crucial city they did not have the luxury to give away in an atrocious peace treaty in the mid-game, and finally smartened up too late. They nearly humiliated Susquehannock and were about to get their deserved foothold on Florida before the Yanomami jumped on them opportunistically and systematically dismantled them with a far larger and superior navy. And on slide 6-7 too! 6-7! Please laugh. I'm making the audio narrator say 6-7. Shaking my head, couldn't this have been a more fun slide? What a depressing slide 6-7. Speaking of civs that don't deserve to have their final rankings higher than Charagua, it's Vyatka. They are hosting a Peguan swordsman delegation to learn about reaching new heights as a rump state. Vyatkan generals are surprised to learn that taking cities from Biarmia is apparently the wrong thing to do. According to the Peguan swordmasters, they should give their cities away and hide in the Urals, preferably the least useful cities so that no one attacks them. They argue that there is really no chance for Vyatka to still make a move of it, given that they are surrounded by civs that are theoretically all stronger than them. The Vyatkan leadership, however, do not quite agree. Those are the now empty Scythian cities to their south, where they could retake their capital, and of course they've proven that they can hold their own against Biarmia, even if the stats show that they are behind in science on that front. Oh, never mind. Charagua returns to life. They may not have built any ranged units, but they certainly had melee units that I conveniently ignored on slide 6-7. It looks like it was actually the galleon that took the city back. This is a bit annoying for Guaikuru, who does not have a melee unit nearby to be able to take it next turn, prolonging the length of time that the 13-nation army song continues to top charts. Anacauna, being teleported back to Miraguano, is shaken again. This time, not from the cold, but because she has seen things. She starts rambling to anyone who will listen about how Antarctica is actually the key to escaping this accursed world. Luofengbo successfully gaslights everyone and continues to host the Longgang Conference, which has always been in Longgang and not Dongwonlu, LCWHABILAND. While the New South Welsh delegates at the LCWHABILAND tried very hard to convince even a single delegate from any civ around them that they actually hold the Forbidden Palace and can even show them Dongwonlu where the conference used to be held. But with enough bribes and gaslighting, not a single one of the over 240 delegates agreed with New South Wales that the Forbidden Palace is in Minghuang. We see the evil Robespierre plotting against Hansa. They are unimpressed with the Schwerin peace deal and are also miffed that all the citadelling they did near Bruxelles did not let them take Benevento. While conveniently ignoring Inverness and the aggressive citadelling that Paris suffered from Scotland, he has at least made the correct assessment that Hansa has very few units, and, theoretically, the large French army could actually take Wisbu at least. I'm gonna fight 'em off. A one-nation army couldn't hold me back. Songs rain out in Tartu as the Scythian War ends status quo antebellum. Scythia has, indeed, completely fumbled the last 5% of their attack on Tartu. Atias has destroyed his entire army, gotten horribly distracted twice, and has nothing to show for it. When he started sending troops to Bremen instead of finishing off Tartu, Estonia jumped on the opportunity and sent 5 line infantry units to defend the city, making it impossible for the 3 units he had left besieging the city to take it and hold it. After the peace deal, we see just how many units Ateas had. It looked way too empty before, when he had it spread out across the entire width of Eastern Europe in some deluded attempt to take a beach resort. This is certainly a win for Estonia, and Ateas won't even have to answer for this fumble because they don't have any civs that really would jump on their lack of an army now. Oh, and the Charagua song is now at 14-nation army. Pakistan attacks Phoenicia! Jinnah has realized his quest to destroy Rumps can start at home, as he sends an army across the desert and immediately dunk Haramun into the red. The extremely outdated Phoenician knights struggle to respond to the attack and fight, but they are no match for the modern cavalry, rifles, and Ulan from the Sumer. That's not even mentioning the 7 planes that start bombing the city. The prospects for this war don't look too great for Pakistan, however. They certainly have enough units to go beyond Haramum, but it's a question of if Jinnah will be able to successfully move all those units that far without giving up. In Tang, China, the advanced scientists researching ways to counter Tlingit discover the secrets of the atom, proving their theories during Project 596. After several experiments with various exotic technologies, Taizong is pleased to see that there is a potential technology that could stop the dominant and currently unstoppable Tlingit Empire should they come to Asia. He is, of course, totally not paranoid that all these advanced nukes will not be enough to stop some guys on horses who could easily invade his country. Taizong continues ordering more research, devoting the military budget to advancing the atomic age and dismissing his advisors who say he should try to have at least 1 military unit per city. It's time to properly say goodbye to Charagua. Miraguano is taken by the Guaycuru in 1957, causing all the 14-nation army parties to stop. It's unfortunate that the entire world jumped on the trend of attacking the poor and struggling Charagua when they were down. And the more down they went, the worse the ganging up got. They end, still, at 54th. Not too undeservedly low, but lower than deserved compared to many other rump states. Their attempt to pull a Cabo Verde came a bit too late. The modern era was really not a great time to try to punch way above their weight. Perhaps if things had gone slightly differently, they would have been remembered. Perhaps if things had gone slightly differently, they would have been remembered for an unbelievable reverse conquest of Susquehannock. Instead, that will be another almost in the potential that Charagua had coming into this season. F. Farewell, Burb friends. In Southeast Asia, Pamangkat and Kuala Sepata both fall to the New South Wales. MacArthur continues to push further north, using his resources effectively to take these 2 island cities and push the front further north. He's not done with the offensive, landing a cavalry unit in Malaya and sending ships and planes to dunk Cinnamon to half health rapidly. With the amount of troops he has, they likely can take a couple more cities, but there is always the danger of overextension. The troop presence is quite thin in the region. There is the chance for Banuba or Cebu to do something devastating here. However, I'm sure MacArthur is not sweating because the immediate threat posed by the Lanfang Navy is nullified if Lanfang sailors don't want to do much. At least a couple frigates have decided to move a bit closer to Cebalao, but that's not going to be enough when they could be taking all of the western Sumatran cities back. Haramum falls to Pakistan! Not many people are surprised, but perhaps they can be surprised at the speed at which the Pakistani army rolled through. The attackers, however, have not fully cleared the area, as a badly damaged Phoenician lancer looks to make a heroic attempt to retake the city for just another turn. The Pakistani reinforcements are straggling a bit behind for Jinnah to be able to do much. They seem to be cautious around the Great Prophet wandering around Nibru, unsure if they should wait for him to get out of the way or not. In the corner, for anyone interested, the Circassians continue to send troops to die on the Caspian front, but this time they land their land units on land. Ingenious! Portugal citadels Zazao again, setting up an easy attack on both Sanankoro and Bisandugu. Unfortunately for our fans, neither side has more than one land unit anywhere close to this area. Zazao, angered for sure by the military operation, is too busy bringing on the foretold Ethiopian collapse to care right now. Portugal celebrates this victory with Max Steiner, who comes up with the genius idea to add soundtracks to movies and makes Portuguese TV shows extremely enjoyable. He composes a certain epic film score for an extremely popular Lazy Portugal show, a Sunday special filmed, appropriately, in ad medias. The show is a hit with Portuguese soldiers who sit back and loaf around instead of preparing for battle. João is disturbed to hear of this, feeling a strong sense of deja vu about a Lazy Portugal show. Only he's confident it wasn't a Lazy Clip Show compilation. Does Herero exist? Theoretically, yes. They were quite embarrassed by allowing Luba of all civs to take a city from them recently, but they do have a healthy army. They can't really attack anyone other than Luba, though, since they don't have much of a navy to contest Seychelles, nor the smarts to attack Maravi's last city, with those two mountains in the way. The core itself isn't looking too great either. For a civ with a lot of floodplains and relative peace, they have far too many 14 and 11 pop cities, where they presumably must be falling behind a bit in the stats race. Well, actually, there are 30th in the stats, so I guess having a lot of mid-sized cities can be enough of a base if Herero ever decides to do something more competent soon. Here we see the continuing Seychelles-Ethiopia front where not much is happening besides a lot of pillage smoke. Seychelles has been a lot stronger in the south, gaining another beachhead in their prior war against Luba. Now, if they can have enough of an army to threaten Musumba, that would be great. At least the plucky underdog island start civ that everyone surely loves has a giant navy that they could theoretically use to attack Herero or some other Indian Ocean civ. We do also get to see enough of Luba over these two slides that we might as well comment on it. They're definitely in a similar boat as Herero, stagnating without a good core and no easy way to contention here. That Maravi city is easier for them to attack, but that can only go so far. Bunuba joins in on the fun, also declaring war on the Main. They have a much stronger core than either Luba or Herero, but that's not too much to write home about when their neighbors are New South Wales and Cebu. We've been here before, where John Damara has fielded a very respectable army and a navy with potential to roll through the lesser defended lands of one of their neighbors. But at this point, John Damara has a lot of doubts to dispel if he wants to be considered a contender moving into the late game. He certainly could, with some smart play and not getting distracted, take the Chono colonies or swoop in to attack the lightly guarded New South Welsh cities in Indonesia. The Phoenicians have discovered something alarming. With the large amount of industrial output and the huge amount of military attacks and smoke from pillaging, the polar ice caps are thawing. They try to warn the world that if the ice caps thawed enough in the 1960s for their ancient biremes to safely navigate through the Arctic Ocean, then the world's sea levels will rise and drown so many coastal cities by the 1990s. Like in real life, these biremes reports are totally ignored, as everyone is much too busy plotting the downfall of Tlingit or some other nonsensical fantasies. Teotihuacan bravely retakes Sipar in the eastern Pacific, destroying all the Caral units near Sipar. The battle isn't over yet though, as Caral does have one cruiser nearby and a melee unit. Of course, they could also bring in the galleons from further east, but, well, we saw how their last attempt to reinforce has gone further north. The Caral Navy in Cerro Blanco, which was on its way to reinforce Sipar, has been tied up in being distracted to destroy all of the embarked melee units Teotihuacan has thrown at them. Whether this is a genius big brain play or a waste of dwindling military resources by Teotihuacan remains to be seen. Tlingit plots against Potiguara for some reason. That's no good for their expansion opportunities. We do see their core where they have an extremely sizable navy, but still have a Tang-tier land army. The Tlingit defensive strategy seems to be putting all their faith in the Ravens, as their televangelists are certainly telling everyone to do. The mechanical raven count is as high on the border with Anishinaabe as it is on their border with the Telmen. But even with all the planes in the world, they certainly do need more than a couple of melee units to actually take cities. Hopefully, Shakes will wake up on the land front and set more realistic goals to steamroll Anishinaabe before they get nukes. Well, maybe Agent Pesh is just kinda shit at their job. It seems like Tlingit has actually declared war on Calamar instead. While an irrelevant war, it at least gives everyone hope and joy that Tlingit is not necessarily actually plotting against Potiguara. Maybe they'll just declare a useless war like they did against Calamar to throw off people spying on Shakes while he actually prepares to attack Anishinaabe. Calamar, meanwhile, is still grinding out the front with Bjarmia, and Margarete has some units near Trondheim that she is fielding a proper defense with, even if Bjarmia is content to only pillage citadels. Someone tell Harakar that to get the citadel land back, he needs to actually take a city from the Calamar. Sepang falls to the Rum Corps, who push the artillery back while bringing Senaman down to the black. With the Rum Corps also stationed next to Senaman, Malaya is probably going to fall soon too. MacArthur is not satisfied and keeps pushing, attempting to attack Londuo next, but his fleet is really thin now. Luo Fangbo, really fed up with all the Nepo babies, suddenly seizes power from the bourgeois elements in his society and declares himself the sole singular supreme executive CEO of the Lanfang Corporation. He immediately orders the Bay of Bengal babies to try and defend Sumatra, and successfully forces some of them to defend. However, he did not foresee that they are all wildly incompetent, and therefore almost immediately all die and get sunk trying to take Kuala Sepata back. Luo just can't win, can he? Pakistan has miraculously mounted an offensive out of Haramum, attacking Kaminahu. Their land units aren't doing as much damage as it seems at first glance. That damage is actually coming from the planes stationed in Lagash, making quick work of the relatively low defenses of Kaminahu. Phoenicia has enough of a defense contingent to cause an issue here, especially if the rest of the Pakistani army is still hesitant to leave Mesopotamia for whatever reason. Agent Pesh reassures us that their information is correct this time, reporting that Shakes is actually plotting to attack Apophis. This is obviously just another one of Shakes' ploys, as he makes a big deal out of potentially declaring an irrelevant war to get the other Middle Eastern rump eliminated. He makes a speech about how the Set worshippers must repent and follow the Raven instead. This clearly is not a plot that will go anywhere anytime soon. Phoenicia and Hyksos are inspired by this idea of declaring irrelevant wars to get people to eliminate Phoenicia and Hyksos. They declare war on Calamar for fun together, making it clear they don't like either Estonia nor Calamar. Pakistan, meanwhile, enters the atomic era, causing a lot of worry for their technologically deficient neighbors to the north, and a slight amount of worry to the unstoppable Seychelles to the south. Tipu Sultan in Mysore is unimpressed, hanging out with his land ships while Pakistan is still fielding cavalry despite the supposed tech advantage. Still, if I were Mysore, I would be very worried about just how uneven the matchup would be between Pakistan and Mysore, and not in Mysore's favor. Third time's the charm, as Shakes reports plotting against Luba. Unlike the past two plotters, there is a very minuscule but non-zero ability for Tlingit to send their navy around the world and target Luba's singular coastal city. Maybe this is what made Agent Pesh here confident that this was the real plot. Further north from Luba, we see that Zozao has completely given up on this attack two cities at once strategy. Their army is much more focused on Addis Ababa, but they've left too much time for the Ethiopians to send a couple units to slow them down. While they have other units that could help, they are too busy being alert around Kauru for some reason. Ethiopia is a bit relieved, even if Zara Yaqub is still convinced he will be the next civ to be eliminated. Harar can now be attacked by Hyksos if Apophis ever wants to wake up. And more importantly for Ethiopia believers, their units in the Eastern Front have seemingly taken out most of the Seychelles units, and could now theoretically mount a counteroffensive given 100 conditions going perfectly. In In a slightly unexpected turn of events, Pakistan rolls through Kaminahu. Wow! That truly is the power of planes and having a stronger and more advanced army. With how close the cities are to each other this season, it's easy to misjudge just how far these planes can bomb. The units that were attacking Kaminahu aren't even that damaged, and there's no realistic way for Phoenicia to take the city back with only one lancer slightly far away. This is terrible for Phoenicia, who is hoping for a couple more turns to fuck around declaring irrelevant wars and fomenting hatred towards them. Pakistan does start moving down toward Yatil, and the Great Prophet is already there, ready to scare the Set worshippers. Although there's a much bigger naval defensive force there, we've already seen what 10 planes can do, and Pakistan certainly has enough melee units that could sweep in and take Yatil once the planes make short work of the city's defenses. New South Wales takes another 2 cities, Cebulau and Senaman, leaving Lanfang with only the extremely vulnerable city of Gaoping in island Southeast Asia. The New South Welsh keep pushing still beyond this, with Lanfang seemingly having no answers to the 4 melee ships that have already dunked Lumar to half health. The reluctant Bay of Bengal babies moved further south and were ready to flank the cities from the side, but they are a little too late. They don't have a melee unit with them, and the previous galleons Lanfang had have all been sunk. It would be nice if the rest of the Bay of Bengal babies at least defended Lumar, but we've seen more incompetence before. Lanfang can at least breathe a bit easy that the offensive on Landuo has been mostly fizzled out. The hip new trend in 1964 is to attack Main. They are the hot new hateable target as people realize that Main has been alive for too long. Now, if only these random, irrelevant DOWs would inspire Seychelles to take them out, it would be real cool. Instead, Seychelles is a bit too busy trying to defend the Horn from Ethiopia, who is sending a slightly respectable contingent of troops. It only looks possible for them to do something to Mbewe because the Seychellois seem allergic to building land units like many other top-tier powers in the 1960s. But even with the mediocre defensive forces, I doubt that Ethiopia can seriously threaten any Seychellois cities. What is less in doubt is whether they can defend Addis Ababa, as they continue to take advantage of the hills and rivers confusing the Zazao horde, with Addis Ababa still at full defense despite several turns now of Zazao attempting to attack the city. Oh, what do you know? The Seychelles do attack Main. They don't really have the overwhelming force in the area nor planes to really take Karnawu, but they theoretically have tiles right next to the city and should be able to demolish the Main swordsmen with their rifles and cavalry. Right? Come on, Seychelles, don't disappoint me again. I can't keep having to defend you against people who hate post-colonial civs. The other big trend of 1964 is to declare war on Lanfang. Aurez, Kipchak, and Ket all seem to have discovered that they were gaslit at the quote-unquote 6th Longan Conference and declare symbolic wars to express their dismay. We get to look at Ket and the rest of Siberia to see that Ket has a sizable and modern army carpet that could, emphasis on could, theoretically fight an honorably matched war against any one of their 4 neighbors and claw out of the early game turtle category. Lanfang pieces out with New South Wales, giving up way too many cities. They give away Landuo, Liu Fento, and Peniti, giving New South Wales a border with Yunnan. This comes after not just the devastating loss of Ket's support, but also after New South Wales captured Lumar. While an objective analysis of the situation here would see that the New South Welsh are overextended with only a mid-sized reinforcement navy on the way, the reality on the ground was that with the Bay of Bengal babies and basically no melee units left, there was not much Lanfang could do to stop NSW from continuing to attack them without consequences. Still, it's a terrible peace deal as Peniti was never under any threat, and now their new capital is surrounded on 3 sides by New South Wales. It seems Luo fell for the classic get scared by the giant stagnant navy near New Zealand blunder. While various other irrelevant wars also peace out, we take a look at the former Phoenician city of Byblos and the Circassian unique unit, the Jigit. They can fire a ranged attack before doing a melee attack, making them quite powerful in this age of planes and melee-mounted unit warfare. It's also nice to see Circassia has quite a lot of their melee units, and could use them all to either eliminate Phoenicia to get a capital, or gank Pakistan opportunistically. Both options seem great for them with these Jigits. I certainly dig it. And we end on a shot of unfinished business. Whether the apocalyptically doomed Teotihuacan continues to cause Corral trouble in the ocean. They keep their capital for now, but Tlingit is already integrating the cities next to Teotihuacan itself, and could jump on them in the next episode. This has certainly been an eventful episode, with the late game dawning on many parts of the cylinder with quicker and more dynamic city captures, and hopefully the end of rump states. May Pegu die soon and Tlingit to the top. This has been Emerald Range, reminding you to trust the Raven and to tune in to see how Tlingit takes Teotihuacan soon. And I've been Yokel. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you next week.